All right. I've told this story before, but I knew this guy was going to be a great announcer when we had dinner once and you got up and started imitating different quarterbacks for me and Kimmel and Sal. And I was like, this guy's got it. As soon as his career's over, it's another 40 years going. Tony Romo, has it been everything you thought it was going to be?
It has. I mean, I feel like, it's kind of the unknown when you're done playing football. It's like, what are you going to do next? And, I love the game. And so I was, like talking about it and analyzing it. And I've studied it, basically your whole life. So to be able to kind of keep doing it, that's obviously a huge positive. And sometimes you get lucky and people may like a little bit of it. And, not everyone, but I think we did okay at some parts.
How many times have you gotten itchy to come back? Like less than, you love gambling. I'll give you an over under 4.5 times you got itchy.
I'll say this. The first year, I probably was itchy once, but other than that, probably none. It's just life goes on. I got 3 boys. They're young. And so, just being a dad and, I got golf for the competitive side of it and announcing. So I kind of get, competition is really what I love. And so I kind of get another outlets.
All right, so let's talk old quarterbacks because you would technically be an old quarterback if you're still playing.
That I am.
We're taping this on a Tuesday. Brady last night against the Rams. This was the 3rd time this season when a team that really, actually the 4th time, when a team that could really pressure him seemed to discombobulate him. And it seems like there's 2 Tom Bradys at this point. One is the guy that if he has time, he looks like the old Tom Brady. And then there's the other one, like the one we saw last night and a couple other times this season where it looks like he doesn't want to get hit. He's making throws that the Tom Brady of 10 years ago didn't make before. And it just seems to me like it's pretty clear anyone that has a front 7 that can make him uncomfortable is going to either beat the Bucs or come damn close. What do you see from afar?
Well, that's always been the case with any quarterback forever. And
okay.
The only difference is, quarterbacks, you can go back to Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers last year. The front 4 can make it very uncomfortable, and guys who are amazing can look, not at their best against those type of teams. Now, I would say with Brady that when you go into a new system, you have so many, like you built a system, what he built for 20 years basically. He built it so he had all these things set in place for certain looks, certain blitz packages, certain pressure looks that he could get to. When they had Welker and then obviously Edelman, you almost never pressured Brady. And when you did, usually you got caught with a play that all of a sudden looked very easy, a wide receiver screen, and a lot of that is because he knew the system so well, he could go to it instantaneously. And when you go to a new system, you got to learn the system, and there's so many levels to every, like a quarterback has been around a long time. There's so many levels to the system that you start to morph it into you and what you need versus certain things. Talk to the coaching staff, they put it in. You start to go ahead and say, I'd like to do this versus this, but it doesn't come up often, but it comes up in 3 games and all of a sudden you're like, I can use it. Why? Because we did it in 2006, back in 2012, and you hadn't used it in a while. Well, I think he just is figuring out, and the coaching staff really is figuring out that Tom's ability to get to the right play is going to win in the end. And it's a new system, and they do have kills, they have checks, they have certain things, but you don't have, that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th level until you've been in it a long time. And so teams who get after you, you find very quickly that you're now trying to process the information differently than you used to. So he's kind of going through that a little bit right now. But I said it after the first game when people wrote him off a little bit, and I said, I'd be careful. He has a very unique way of proving people wrong very quickly.
Well, at the same time, he's 43, and this has to end at some point. And I think when you're a quarterback, especially in big games and especially when you get into the playoffs, you're a little bit like a pilot. You can't, even if you make one mistake, that might be it. That's the mistake, and that was the thing for years and years. He would always kind of, he would have his moments, but some of the passes he's had this year, you just kind of go, oh man, that looked like a 43-year-old guy. And that's the part that's hard for me to figure out, whether it's just age.
The system, and this is the hard one to describe to people, but in their system, they have the ability for the receiver to read it and the quarterback to read it. And that's a little bit different in that Tom knew over time what each of his receiver, all the receivers that he had, tight ends, he knew what they would do versus this look, versus outside leverage, versus the guy inside, versus the safety who's shaded a little bit. He's going to bend it a little more. He's going to widen it. All of a sudden you find a guy that he thinks is going to widen it, bends it right when he's throwing the ball. And you expected him to do that. And so every time he throws an interception, I would argue he's almost learning the people, the system. And so I don't look at it in a way as long as they get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which I think they'll be fine with. But he's probably not going to make the same mistake twice on the same routes and the same coverages and the same looks. But you almost have to go through that. I don't care who you are. I mean, you just can't learn that second, third, fourth, fifth level this short amount of time with no offseason. I mean, the amount of time he's done right now is still not even the same amount he'd had to do it against his defense day in and day out. Make those mistakes when no one's looking, and all of a sudden you put that in your brain, he processes the information, and, oh, look at this. He didn't make that again in week one. So he's just going through that a little bit, but he's still playing great. It's just a little bit different.
I'm a big body language, facial expression guy. That's one of my things. Some people call me the body language doctor. I haven't liked the body language of him in a couple of these games, and especially yesterday, because I think one of the things that made him so awesome to root for me for 20 years was he carried himself like a movie character. It was like having Patrick Swayze walking into the Double Deuce, like that kind of energy. The guy in Tampa sometimes, and you could see it when it's happening, especially last night, just he has this look like, I can't solve this. I don't know what to do. And to me, it seems easy. Like he's got 3 really good receivers. He's got at least 1 good tight end. Spread them out and do Tom Brady stuff. And I don't know why they don't do that. So why aren't they doing that?
Well, what happens, the old game of football, like if you go back a long time, like Dan Marino, spread them out, let me look at it. Because quarterbacks usually like things spread out. Because when you have people very close together, let's say you have a bunch formation, you have a tight end at the point, a guy 1 yard inside of him. We'll go with the old Patriots, right? You got Edelman right here. You got Gronkowski here. And then you got the receiver right by him. He's on the right side of Brady, just off the line of scrimmage. And then you got another receiver over here. Well, that makes the defense all get closer to you as well. So the game in the NFL, from a quarterback's perspective, is about pressure and not about the 4 guys up front. It's about who can break down the protection. You got 5 offensive linemen. There's 4 D linemen, let's say. 1 guy gets to block an extra guy. So Brady sends the center. 4 down lineman, he says, center, go block Mike 52. That's who you got. So who else is left? You got a running back. So when you tell the center who he's blocking, he's got that guy. But if you bring a safety and a nickel corner down over here over that little bunch, all of a sudden you're like, well, those guys can break the protection down. So most quarterbacks spread it out. If they want to blitz, they got to come out of the middle of the field or on the side over here, 10 yards off. He's got to start to show me. Or that guy who's out there on the slot receiver, he's got to start coming in. I can change the protection. Center, go get him. Tailback, go get him. Now, in New England, they were incredible because they could do all these tight bunch looks, motion, get stack releases because they did so much stuff quickly and got the ball out of his hands with so much unique stuff that it allowed the quarterback to be like, if you're blitzing, we have an answer right away. Now, in his system, it's a little more of a hot route. If he blitzes, throw hot. You get 3 yards, 4 yards. Well, that's kind of where quarterbacks struggle sometimes. It's like, well, it's 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
Do you want to throw it for 4? And to me, it's just learning the system and what really, over time, is the right way to do it in this system. And so, like any quarterback, the frustration will come in when you're like, there might be a better way, but then you got to also go teach it to a lot of people. And that's very difficult because not everyone has his background of what he had before. The coaches there didn't. So they can't just put stuff in left and right without knowing all the little intricate rules for every single player on the field.
So you're buying long-term on the Bucs. You feel like 3 months from now, this will, or 2 months from now, I guess. So mid-January, you feel confident that they won't look sloppy like this?
I think it's easier to double team people with space. The league used to be like that. And like I said, quarterbacks used to like that. The league has gone to motion. Get the defense running. They don't really want to pressure you if all of a sudden you're going to change very quickly. I think the Bucs could motion a lot more, make the defense have to communicate. And, in a way to talk about it would be like if Jabbar's in the paint for the Lakers, they're going to run fist, and here comes the skyhook, right?
Yeah.
Well, everyone could get set up, but it's like, well, this guy's going to catch it and turn and shoot. Who are you going to double team with? That guy? Well, the rotations in the league started to get better and faster. People knew how to rotate and go double team, and the other guys all could flow, but they all had to communicate. Well, in football, it's the same way. You want to make defenses have to talk while the snap is occurring. And when you're static and you're stationary, they can fake it. They can talk just like offenses. They can do a whole bunch of stuff, make it look like this, then get back into the spot. But when you're going like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs do, where you see the motion, the movement of everybody, it kind of calms the defense down. It's hard to pressure those type of things. And I think if there's one thing I would say, it's that they probably need to get a little bit more, movement pre-snap.
Incredible basketball reference. That's why you've made the transition so well. You're seamlessly able to grab other sports in here. Let me ask you about
the Spurs. Okay. Spurs when they came on, right? When they were everyone's moving and going and cutting.
Oh yeah. And more about it. Now you've brought 2 NBA teams in this. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So we have no fans this year, and you can pick up basically every audible, every signal, every whatever that the quarterback's saying, and all these little test things. There was one game I was watching. It was a car was doing like Sammy Davis, and when you're watching these games, because you have that weird brain where you, in general, know what everybody's going to do. Are you even picking up like the terms, and by the third quarter, going, "Oh, they're doing Sammy Davis. That means the running back to the tight end." Like, how much can you absorb even as the game's happening?
Oh, I mean, I think you're absorbing all the time. I think people sometimes talk about a coach, and some people in organization or someone might ask me a question about when they're hiring someone, and certain things I look at, and just a point about what you made would be your ability to adapt. So from a coaching perspective or a quarterback, it's like, can you process the information that just happened and come up with a plan that's in your system on offense, let's say.
Yeah.
You're an offensive coordinator. This is happening. We weren't prepared for that, right? Well, how can I teach it and make it very simple for 11 guys? You can't just say, hey, do this. Guys, just go do it. Because they don't have all the rules if something's different. So you have to have 11 guys. So how do you make that simple for all 11 guys and make it something that we do, but we're going to change it because they're doing all this crazy stuff now. And that's just your ability to adapt on the fly. And a lot of coaches I found can do it on Monday morning after they look at the tape. They're like, we should have got to this earlier. We should have done this earlier. Could have done this. And quarterbacks the same way. And then the rare guys, the guys who are really gifted, they're doing it on the next drive.
Right. So blue 80 is now blue 72.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but it's like Sammy Davis, right?
Yeah.
Well, the defense should get coached up on the side. The middle linebacker, if he walks over and says, hey, that was Sammy Davis when they ran outside zone right.
Yeah.
Or let's pretend it was Red Rover. Okay. Well, there's an R in there. So offenses are making it really easy and simple because quarterback goes, Red Rover. Right. So is it a pass play or is it a run? Oh, it's a running play. It was outside zone. Great. Guys, next time they run Red Rover, I want you to slide the line. That's the middle linebacker. He's the quarterback of the defense. Say, slide. Right? Well, you have that in. You just weren't prepared for that this week, but we've done it before. You just slide the line, you gain a little advantage. That's depth.
So the R thing, it could be like Railroad, Range Rover, Rod Stewart, anything with an R and everybody knows just to go right. Is football that easy?
No, it's not. Because what happens is red might be right. Rover might be the play. Red might be right. And what happens is offenses then hear that you know that and they slip the line. They'll come back with red letter.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden the play's going left. So it's just
how
that word goes back and forth.
I don't know how they keep track of all this stuff. So has there been a game this year? Because literally we can hear everything this year. Has there been a game this year where by the fourth quarter you knew everything the team was going to do?
No, I mean, you never know everything someone's going to do. But, once you know football, it's almost like sometimes it can be like math where you can kind of give yourself a great opportunity, I guess you could say,
to guess.
To guess.
So it's more like poker in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Poker. Yeah. Perfect.
I don't know. I know you don't gamble at all. So in poker, sometimes you can kind of guess what people's hands are.
Well, you're guessing, but by the way, that's another part. The permutations of this don't just end with someone saying something. It's mannerisms of people, like you said. Yeah. Just the way that guy's looking. Like you'll see, there's a linebacker, right? You walk up at the line of scrimmage, and I told you before, the center, hey, Tom Brady says, center, Mike's 52. Go block 52. But you're sitting there, 52's looking around, looking at you. He's pretending to blitz.
Yeah.
56 is right next to him. 56 is standing there looking down at the ground. And through all the years you played, you're like, nah, change it. Mike's 56, block him. And all of a sudden at the snap, 56 comes. And it's because the mannerisms of the guy. It's like guys are trying to hide when they're blitzing. They don't want to look at the quarterback. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm not blitzing. And you already know that's not right. You would never do that unless you're blitzing.
It's so hard. I think it's the hardest job in all sports. And you see, like even Tua, I had the Dolphins. I had the money line, not the -3.5. But the Dolphins will beat the Broncos. The Broncos stink. They've been down 20 in 4 straight games. And then Tua, whatever they're doing with them in that first half, he just can't figure it out. And then it gets into the second half. It's like, oh, they'll make adjustments. Nope, still can't figure it out. And finally, they have to go to the Fitzpatrick thing. And the reason he couldn't figure it out, they shorten the field on him. They're sending weird pressure. Sometimes they're rushing 4, sometimes a weird blitz. And he doesn't have enough confidence to just drop the ball like over people's heads. And they basically have to take him out. And I still think 2 is good, but it just shows you like the stuff that like somebody like Herbert's doing, where he's 37 completions in a game and you're a rookie. And I don't know. I just think the position's so much harder. But do you think we expect too much from some of these rookies?
Well, it depends on the system you're in, the talent around you, everything. The one part is, with the 2-1, you got to remember who he went against. And I think Vic Fangio, who's the head coach of the Broncos, is one of the best defensive design coaches. So he was the defensive coordinator before. He was one of the most difficult that I went against as far as usually we have rules you look at after the snap based on coverages. So certain rules are, if it's cover 2, these routes adjust to this for our receivers. If it's cover 3, we know what we're looking at. But the league, why it's different than college or high school, you've got to figure out what they're in right after the snap or pre-snap if it's first down or second down. Third down gets very difficult. But after the snap, you have to look at certain guys to tell you what, if a safety, they both go back, it's cover 2 because you've watched tape all week, right? Well, if one guy goes down and the other goes back, it's cover 3. And that means that 3 guys have all the way to the end zone to protect on defense. 2 corners go back and the 1 safety goes back. 2 safeties, cover 2, they go back. They have half the field, 50% of the field, all the way to the end zone. So what happens is you're always looking at safeties, maybe linebackers once in a while, to determine where you start your read. So my read starts in cover 2 over here, 1 to 2 to 3 to the 4. In cover 3, same route. We didn't change our route concept. Oh, it's cover 3. I start over here, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So what happens when you're young and going against Vic Fangio, you kind of don't know what it is. Is it cover 2, 4, 3, 2-man? And all of a sudden you're kind of like holding the ball and you don't know where to start and you don't know how to get through a read because you're just randomly looking. And so you don't make it systematic.
Something wrong with Lamar, or is this just one of those year from hell years for them?
Well, it's a combination of multiple things. I mean, we know how talented he is. You can't luck your way into MVP.
Yep.
So we know he's a very special quarterback, and I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL. This year, just, they lost their right guard. He retired. He was a great player, Marshall. And then their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, he's on IR. Lost him. Those are 2 of the best linemen in the NFL. And people don't understand how you went from 2.5 to 3 seconds in the pocket to 1.5 to 2 seconds. Now all of a sudden, all the reads that you're used to doing at this pace, you normally go boom, 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 boom. Now you're going boom, boom, hit.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, that wasn't like that last year. And it's like Baker Mayfield in year one. He had Zeitler, an offensive lineman. They traded him to the Giants. And I think for Olivier Vernon, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong there. And I was like, I didn't love it simply because Baker was used to playing at this speed.
Yeah.
His brain was like, I can read it. I have time to get through this. Now the next year he's reading the same thing. He's like, boom. And now your internal clock speeds up on every play. So you're trying to do it faster. And over time that starts to make mistakes happen. And all of a sudden these plays that were great a year ago aren't quite there. Teams have had a year to study you. So that was going to help half a second. Players in front of you aren't quite there anymore. There's another half a second. I mean, all this stuff adds up, and that's why it's really hard to maintain it for a long time without cohesiveness.
Have you done a Herbert game yet?
I actually did his first one.
Oh, which was amazing because the Tyrod Taylor almost gets stabbed to death by the team doctor, basically. And then Herbert comes in, looks like he hadn't even like showered or put his contact lenses in. He's like, oh, am I playing? And then was really good. And I was watching that going, is he good? And now we know like the guy is special, and he's kind of unlike any other QB right now. He's just like this old school AFL gunslinger, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you must love him.
Well, I watched one drive. I watched his first drive and I said, I'm going to tell you right now, this kid, he's not pretty good. He's really good. So I could see some of those small little things sometimes where you're like, he shouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
That was rare. And then I'm like, okay, maybe that was lucky. And then I'm like, he shouldn't have been able to do that either. And there was two of them on the first drive. And I said, I told Jim, I'm telling you, this kid's not pretty good. He's really good and he's special. They hit a home run right here. So, for me,
what? I remember you doing that game now that you're bringing this up. And I remember you becoming more and more impressed as the game went along. You kept pointing it out.
I think it was the Chiefs, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was somebody else, but I think it was the Chiefs they went against and they had him beat.
Yeah.
Mahomes went down and scored to beat him.
Right.
And Herbert's had a few tough losses now. He's played amazing, but he has the ability to, I call it, process information quickly. And so when you're young, you really can't, like I described, I'm like, you can't always know exactly what to look at when you're young because you don't know where all the rules are for the stuff I said. With cover three, you go here, start boom, 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 boom. But what he does is have spatial awareness where he's like, I don't know, there's more guys over here. I'm just going to throw it over here. And that guy's kind of like underneath him. I'll just throw it behind him. And
did you see that pass he had, that touchdown he threw where the guy hadn't even turned around yet and he threw it through this 25-yard laser to the spot where the guy was going to be a second and a half later? It was unbelievable.
I haven't seen it. In our game, he threw a route that he threw two balls that quarterbacks don't usually make. In the first game I did, and this was later on in the game. I already knew he was really good. And I mentioned it on air, but he was exceptional. It's hard to describe, but he's, it would be too long for me to explain everything I saw in the thing, but he just does things that are rare. And he has the ability to throw the ball downfield versus certain coverages not others do. And he has the ability because he sees it very quickly. And his eyes can go, boom.
Yeah.
And if you watch people, Patrick Mahomes has this like times 10 of anybody, but he'll look over here and he's looking over there. People have seen him go like that and throw it.
Yeah.
They see that. But in reality, they don't see the one where he's looking at the guy. But the linebacker, if you go watch the tape, he's throwing a guy breaking this way, right? He's going to throw here. He just looks right here. And the linebacker moves, and then he goes. And he's just using his eyes. So what he's not doing is he's not actually looking. Most quarterbacks look at the guy they're going to throw to.
Yeah.
When you get really good, you just look at the defense and move them. You say, I already know where my guy is. I'm just going to look at the defender and go, I'm going to throw here. Just move your body weight. Just an inch. Start your body weight here. Bam, I got the extra foot I needed. All goes back there. And that's where I think Herbert has a little bit of that.
The NFL top 100 shows that they did, they had Belichick on, and they were doing the Ed Reed section. And they showed this play where Ed Reed faked out Manning where he
Was he
basically
hiding behind a ref or somebody?
no, he pretended he was going to veer left because he knew what Manning was going to do, pretend he was going to throw right and then throw it back left deep to Reggie Wayne. So Ed Reed drifted that way and then basically did this 180 sprint to the spot and picked off Manning. And Manning came off the field like he was just, what the fuck? I had this guy taking it. And Belichick was so excited about it. He was like, that is the greatest play I've ever seen a safety make in my life. But it was the only time I remember the secondary guy outwitting the dude who's outwitting him with the eyeball look to the right, because that was a Manning specialty. You were good at that too, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Way back when.
I tell you that you're exactly right. It's, if you're good enough, like if you know the rules to things, right? When you see this, so when people come off the ball, if you're Ed Reed and you see this combination, 4 guys are going that way, right?
Yeah.
And you see the quarterback who's really good. You go against a rookie, he looks over here, you flow with him right away and go pick it off or try to. Against Peyton Manning, you're watching enough tape. If you're really, like I said, if you're going to adapt, you're watching the tape, you're like, every time he looks right on these 4 guys going vertical, he throws left.
Yeah. Why is that?
But are you willing to trust that in a game?
Yeah.
And so when he looks right, he's really still looking at you. And he's trying to move you because he wants to throw this guy. So I'm going to look here. I'm going to throw this seam. And then he goes, boom. And you're like, I fell for it, right? And everybody does, because on the field, it's like, it's real. It's not like this fake video game thing. It's like, these are big plays. And so your responsibility is stay there, but you got to flow quickly. So he basically said, I'm going to make him think I'm flowing with my body leverage. And as soon as he feels that leverage, I'm going to go right away the other way. I'm guessing. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. He did that to me too. He got me.
The Herbert's cannon, on top of everything else. Sal and I talked about this on Sunday in our pod. I'm just, all due respect to the Chargers fans, but they're basically like a team without a city right now. They're in LA as like the second team. You just think like, if you put this dude on the Cowboys or the Broncos or the Bears, these teams that have these generations of fans, they'd be absolutely losing their mind. And here it's like, maybe he's the gateway to the Chargers having fans in LA and people like my son. But it's just weird that this is, and then Burrow, who sadly went down last week, but I felt like Burrow in a lot of ways was just as good and just as impressive as Herbert is. The difference is the age. I think Burrow's probably like 3.5 years older. But
yeah, I haven't done a Burrow game. I think he's really good. I watched once again a couple drives.
Yeah.
Usually I watch a couple drives just to get an evaluation for my own brain if I have to.
So right away, pretty much.
It was quarterbacks, yeah. I can tell pretty quickly. But I knew right away with Herbert. I mean, that might be the best pick in that draft. And I'll tell you right now that there's going to be a lot of teams ahead of him who are going to look back and be like, how did we miss on this guy?
Well, how about Miami? And I'd like Tua, but Miami takes Tua over him on top of the injury risk. But I got to be honest.
I've yet to see, I'll be honest, I've yet to see one play of Tua so far. Just, each week I'm studying the game we're doing. And I had like Miami in the first game, and Ryan was the quarterback, Fitzpatrick at the time.
Yeah. Is Mahomes the most talented quarterback ever? I'm not saying he's the best ever, but does he bring the most to the table from a talent standpoint?
That's hard to say, because what does talent mean? Like when you say that, just like give me a description.
So I would say Jordan and LeBron brought the most to the table, but they also maximized it by how hard they worked. But they were just, if you're just checking what are the 20 things I need from the best guy in the league, they probably check the most boxes. So with Mahomes, if you're trying to create...
That's a better description.
Yeah.
He checks so many boxes, it's hard to describe, because he kind of has the vision and instincts, of like a Peyton Manning. But like, when I say that, I mean like the vision, the ability to look off, do these things.
Yeah.
Has a little bit of an arm close to like Aaron Rodgers.
Or early Favre.
Yeah, but with Favre, he's back then, you got to remember, people were under center a lot more. And so the game was, I don't want to say faster, but shotgun, the game slows down a little bit for quarterbacks because you're not rushed to get back to get set up. And That's why everyone went to shotgun. It was like the quarterback could feel things better, differently. And so it's a hair different. I thought Favre played as, I don't want to say as slow in the pocket, but if you watched Aaron Rodgers or Brady, they're calm in the pocket. When Favre started, it was rush back, get there, right through these things, and he had a cannon, right? Well, Rodgers had a cannon. Patrick does too. Patrick plays very calm. And so he moves when he needs to move. But he can move, whenever he wants. He can run for 20. I mean, in the playoff game last year, he ran for 40-yard touchdown, I think. Made 2 guys miss and broke a tackle. But he checks so many boxes. It's hard to think that someone else has ever checked that many boxes.
That's how I feel.
The only thing that comes to my brain is that, like, a Brady, these boxes, there's 10 of them. He checks them all. Well, I still don't have a great description for you that tells you what's that one that Brady has that's 14 points better than everybody else.
Right.
Because there is one of those. And he has it. And it's like, that box right there, well, that just made those other 4 really not matter. And, that's for another day. But
well, the thing with Mahomes, on top of everything else, is just like that 3rd and 9 play where you call the perfect D. 2 guys are chasing him. He's about to get sacked, and then he just puts his jet skis on, and all of a sudden he runs for 11 yards. You're just like, we played that perfectly. That's the fact that he has that piece on top of everything else is nuts. I think the quarterback play, it seems like we ebb and flow with this stuff, but I think I like the state of quarterbacks right now, especially with the rookie infusion we had. And just going down the line, there's only like a few teams that are really screwed. Losing Dak obviously wasn't great, but in general, I think like half the league has to be at least somewhat happy with their QB play. All right, let's talk about golf.
By the way, this is probably the best collection of talent. There was one other time frame. It was probably like 2007 to 11 or 12. Yeah, where you had like the older guys and the younger guys together.
Right.
Favre was still playing. He was in Minnesota. You had Rodgers.
And then your generation's coming in.
Yeah, and it was Brady, Manning, but you had Roethlisberger. So you had Brady and Peyton, obviously. You had Favre. You had Aaron Rodgers, who was about to come in.
Rivers, Breeze.
By 2011, they were like 15-1 or whatever it was. And then you also had Kurt Warner. I mean, you had probably, and Roethlisberger. I mean, you had probably 10 or 12 guys that could be Hall of Famers, in a lot of ways. And so this is probably the best collection of depth, that I've seen since then. And I think it's probably better because everyone learns from the people before him in every sport. You just start to be like, how did that guy do that? And they study it. And then the coaches study what Peyton Manning figured out, what Tom Brady figured out. Other coaches are studying what their system is doing and trying to implement it to make it hard on defenses. And eventually they start using it, and it makes life easier on the quarterback.
Basketball's like that too. Basketball ebbs and flows. Right now, basketball's in an awesome talent stretch. Like you look at the 3 All-NBA teams and 10 guys that don't make it. We're like, man, the league's got like 30 awesome guys right now. And sometimes that number could be 12. But yeah, it's funny when the quarterback's like that. I know you haven't seen every team yet. Is there a defense that's jumped out to you as, watch out for that team in cold weather, January? That's gonna be a bitch to play.
Well, I feel like last year, San Francisco right away, it was like, they're going to rush 4 guys, but the system was difficult. Like, everyone else had Kansas City just winning that Super Bowl, and I said, this is going to be a game. People just can't understand how talented, but also their scheme was really good on both sides of the ball. And, they were pretty close to winning the Super Bowl. Now everyone forgets Kansas City had to come back in 3 games, in the playoffs to win.
How about the Garoppolo bomb? If it's a yard shorter, they go ahead with like a minute and a half left.
And that's where it's like, oh, this team's so great, they're going to be a dynasty, right? Well, the Chiefs are great. They have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill. The combination is Kelsey. Really tough. And, I said this was about Brady. I said, when Tom Brady, if you have the best quarterback who meets the best coach and they're together, they're going to win multiple championships because they're always going to be the most prepared. They're always going to have the most answers. And the guy's going to overcome little things that other people can't. And then they're going to always be in the mix or possibly win just based on those two, regardless of kind of the people that come in and out. And when you get really good people around you, you win and go 16-0. And it was like Popovich with Duncan, right? Now, Duncan wasn't LeBron, or Michael, let's say, but he's way up there in the class of people. And that combination means they're going to be in the mix every year that those two are together.
Right. 50 wins every year. That's
Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. It's 11 wins every year unless something weird happens.
Yeah.
I know you frown on gambling and you don't like gambling at all, but
I hate it.
Is there, first of all, Sal and I decided on Sunday night Mahomes was the MVP and he was plus 180 heading into those games. And now we're just like, as long as he's Mahomes for 5 more games, that's a wrap. Do you see any other MVP candidate across the board? Like you could make a case, maybe Kyler Murray could get hot down the stretch, but other than that, I don't see it.
No, I mean, no.
Okay.
It's Patrick Mahomes unless he gets hurt or something weird happens, which you never wish on anybody.
And then the other thing that's going on, this is right around the time everybody decides who's going to be in the Super Bowl. But as we learn every year, who we decide that's never actually the Super Bowl. Is there a kind of medium shot that you like? Somebody in that 7-3, 6-4 range, like maybe a Ravens, maybe the Bucks, maybe Buffalo. Maybe you like what you saw from Tennessee. You did the game on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Is there kind of a mid-range team that you're enamored with?
So give me the division leaders. Do you have it off the top of your head right now?
Yeah, I got, AFC, it's Buffalo, Steelers, Tennessee's in a tie with Indy, but I think Indy has the thing, and then the Chiefs. And then in the NFC, we'll throw the East out. Packers, Saints, and I think it's the Rams right now. Maybe Rams, Seahawks as a combo.
So the two teams that come to mind would be the Cardinals and the Bills.
Okay.
Those are two teams that can give any team trouble in the league in a one-game set. Sean McDermott, great coach for the Bills. Josh Allen has rare ability, and he's still learning the game. But I think you'll see, you started seeing the flashes of how good he can be. It's just him learning. And
their offense, I think people jumped off on, including myself. And maybe you look back and it's like a couple of bad weather games. There was one weird COVID week. And maybe we shouldn't have been so eager to jump off that team.
Well, I think anybody who jumps on or off after a game is kind of silly in general because sometimes a coach on the other side just came up with a great scheme that day that really made it very difficult and everything was hard. And you go back and look on Monday. But when you play them again in 6 weeks or in the playoffs, you're way more prepared because that same scheme is not going to work. So where do you go from there? And so, that happens sometimes. I mean, we've seen, like we keep talking about the Patriots, but how many times do we put them for dead over the years? I mean, I can remember the Kansas City game years ago where they lost and came in and threw a touchdown on the last drive, and it was like, there's the end. It was like 2014. They only played in like 3 or 4 Super Bowls after.
They won 3 more titles after. Yeah. So Buffalo is 25-1, Tennessee's 30-1, Cardinals are 32-1.
I think to me, the Cardinals and Buffalo would be the two like dark horse teams. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but they'd be teams that have the quarterback who can do it and have a defensive system that I think could give teams trouble.
The thing with the Cards, so they play the Pats this week. That's a team they should beat. The Pats don't have a front seven that's going to hurt Kyler in any way. And if they're really good, we're at the point of the season where it's like you just got to take care of business in games like that. You win by 10, go to the next game. And Buffalo's been starting to do that.
That's a funny statement, though, in the NFL because there is, you're not going to play Bill Belichick and all of a sudden it's like the Ravens. Like that was an easy go win a game 2 weeks ago. And all of a sudden that's a loss. And you look back and it's like, what just happened there? But Bill Belichick is really good. I'll tell people same thing. Be very careful about this season saying that he's not still Bill Belichick. Same with Brady. It's like these two guys, they're not pretty good, They're the best, and they're going to figure this thing out. And even if it's not this year, over time, they're going to figure it out.
Well, him beating the Ravens was ridiculous. That he pulled out a game plan from the Bronco Nagurski era, and then he convinced God to have a monsoon during the fourth quarter. Really, that's why he's the best. Let's talk about golf really quickly before you go. You love golf. You watch golf constantly. You fantasize about maybe being in the senior tour someday.
No, Masters,
no?
US Open.
Okay. Oh, even better. Okay, whatever. DJ finally wins the Masters. Everyone's like, he's pound for pound. He's kind of the Mahomes of golf in some ways. He checks the most boxes of all the golfer. Then you have Koepka, who seemed like he was banged up this year. A year ago, it was like, road goes through Koepka. And then 2 years before that, it was road goes through Jordan Spieth. It just seems like the guy kind of changes year to year. Who's the guy for you right now?
Well, I would say, based on your statement right there, this is sports in general. Like, there's very rare times where you have, got to remember, Michael Jordan didn't win a title for what, 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years.
Okay, so you can be the guy, doesn't mean it's guaranteed success. And, even with Patrick Mahomes, I think sometimes it's what happens when something like Tyreek Hill and one other guy go down. He can do it. He's that good. But all of a sudden, it makes everything way harder. And teams pressure you now because they're not scared of that guy scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady lost to Randy Moss or Wes Welker or Edelman. Like, when guys go down, Gronkowski, things get more difficult no matter how good you are at the professional level, because the game just isn't as easy as it looks year in, year out. And there's one Tiger Woods, I would say. I don't think that we're going to see that probably very soon. The combination of speed, power, precision, touch, softness, and then obviously incredible putting. But I think you're right with Dustin Johnson. He has rare ability. When people watch it, I can still remember watching Aaron Rodgers at the Pro Bowl one year. He threw a ball, and it was in a practice. And I remember watching it, and I turned to the coach, and I was like, yeah, I've never seen anybody do that.
Right.
And I was like, I can't believe that ball just went that high, that far, with that effortless power. And it was like, well, if that guy's on, it's really hard to beat him in golf, let's say, right? And it's the same way. DJ's kind of one of those guys, but the rest of it's like you can get injured. That's what you're talking about with Brooks. If Mahomes has one or two guys get hurt, if things happen, they just happen in sports, and you're never guaranteed tomorrow. I mean, Dan Marino came out and threw 48 touchdowns his rookie year, or whatever, second year, sorry. And he was incredible, and he was the standard right then too. And he went to a Super Bowl, and they didn't win it then. He went against Joe Montana. Obviously, that's a very difficult. I mean, how great is that game? But then after that, Dan Marino, like, you talk to any quarterbacks growing up in that era, he was the guy they looked at. He was like, wow, that's Dan Marino. That's Patrick Mahomes right now. But you're not guaranteed it.
Well, talk to a Patriots fan who had to root against Dan Marino. That guy was absolutely petrifying. Yeah, I think the thing with golf, because it does change year to year, right? Everybody's the guy, and then something will happen and it flips. What's more interesting to me is there's always one guy who becomes the guy in a tournament if he's like two back. The fans are aware of it, like fourth round, eight. Oh, he just eagled 8. And there's always that one guy that the other guys are like, oh shit, that guy's coming. And that was what was so great about Tiger. Even after his run basically ended in 08, then all this shit happened to him. But he still was able to, he had that persona of like the Tiger shadow over those fourth rounds where he could be 5 back, 3 back, and you're still kind of aware of him. I feel like Brooks is that guy now, even though he hasn't had, a year remotely like what he had the previous 2 years. But even in that Masters weekend, all of a sudden he was kind of lingering for a second. It was like, oh, here comes Brooks.
Yeah.
So I guess like the title would be the, here comes blank guy. And I think that's Brooks, unless you disagree.
No, Brooks is been incredible for such a stretch, but he was banged up. What happens is, like in professional sports, you got to learn your body again. Like all the same stuff you used to feel, like in golf, to hit the golf ball, that's fine. It's not like your hands and your thought process go away, but it's like a quarterback who gets hurt and can't quite run like he used to. He's so used to doing it this way, but the body doesn't quite react that way. And that's why health matters. And so Brooks is just learning how to get back to where he was, but he has to go through the process like everybody else. This isn't like high school where you can just show up, in some ways because I'm better than everybody. It's like these guys are really good. And if you're not at your best, it's hard to win against guys who are at their best because, it's just small margins between them. But Brooks was able to keep that for such a long period of time. And so people talk about confidence, all that stuff. And I'm like, confidence is just a demonstrated ability to yourself.
Yeah.
I have confidence strictly because I know I've been doing this every day on the range, in the tournaments. I know I'm going to do this. And I know, and I know they know. And so it's like, I'm going to go do it. When you get hurt and you come back, you're like, I pulled that one shot. I don't normally pull it in the front 9 in the first round. I mean, I might pull it on the, 48th hole of the tournament, and I know how to adjust it. But now I'm like, all right, let me go ahead and correct it a little bit. And so your confidence gets just a little bit. And so when people say, I got to be more confident, I'm like, you get confident by going to show yourself you should be confident. Go practice, make it 100%. You want to eliminate left? Eliminate it. Hit 100 balls, never start one left of the flag.
Right.
Go ahead, do that. Now you're going to get confident. It's demonstrated ability. So Brooks just is going through what everybody does as a professional athlete. He'll be fine. He's incredible.
Are you pro Bryson or anti Bryson?
What's that?
Are you pro Bryson or anti Bryson?
No, I love it. I think it's great for the game.
I'm pro Bryson too. I get mad when people are like, no, he's kind of a villain. It's like, why? Because he's hitting the shit out of the ball? How is this not fun? No. I don't know. There's a weird backlash with him that I don't totally understand.
When you're doing something and other people are trying to copy you, you're doing something right. At the professional level, it's very hard because there's a lot of people who have a lot of great teaching. They work very hard, and it's their livelihood. I mean, it's all day, and you're studying it and doing everything, and you hire a team, and they got everything around. But, Bryson deserves credit for figuring something out. And that requires patience, practice, ingenuity, adapting, and also at the same time, it requires you trusting it fully. And all of a sudden after that, it's like, oh, maybe we should all do that. Whereas before, people don't really want to, it's like me in golf. It's like no one wants to really, if you're a really PGA guy or a guy who's a really good golfer, it's like, hey, he's a football player playing golf. But if I beat a guy, then they might ask you, well, so what are you doing with your technique? And so when you start winning, people want to know.
How come you haven't ended up in one of these goofy skins matches with the celebrity and the real golfer and they go head to head and everybody's mic'd? Like, how have you not done this yet?
They asked a couple times, but, just.
Wait, that's not a good answer.
Well, I just haven't been. I just have.
You're not ready yet? What are you afraid of?
I'm not afraid. I just, I got life. I got kids. I only have so much time in my hands. So.
Do you realize how much fun Sal and I would have betting on you in some goofy celebrity skins match? Why are you depriving us of this?
Well, because you're calling it goofy. So I think
it's goofy. I'm dying to see it. Who would you pair up with? Who would be your guy? Who would be your partner?
I'll take Sal. Who do you take? I don't know.
No, not Sal. A real golfer. Who would you take? Brooks?
No, I'm taking Sal, right? He's good at golf. He's fam. No,
you definitely don't want Sal.
He's not that either. Okay, no. Yeah, he doesn't check any of the boxes, does
he? He checks 0 boxes for golf.
No, I mean, there's a lot of great golfers. I'll be fine with him. But just, scheduling wise and just.
It's so diplomatic. Such a diplomatic answer from you. Did you win money on?
But it's like, I like playing tournament golf where it matters, if that makes sense.
What, you've done Pebble Beach and all that stuff, right? Yeah, I've seen you in there. What's the best one to do as a celebrity kind of moonlighting in this stuff?
Well, I mean, I've played in a few PGA Tour events, and so my goal is obviously to take the next step and keep going there. But as far as the other one, American Century is amazing. You know, in Lake Tahoe, that's always really my family, my boys love to go down there, so that's been really enjoyable. But that's pretty much the only one I play in when it comes to that.
I'm going to end on this. Speaking of boys, so my son really got into football like a year ago, and became obsessed with LT. So we watched The Football Life on LT, which is just like LT is like, who's the best, defensive player ever? It's like, it's LT. Let's move on to the next argument. So then he started watching all the Football Lives, and they made one about you that was really good. And he belatedly became a Romo fan, even though you're retired. But they did a nice job of capturing your career and some of the ups and downs and all that stuff. And he was really into it. Have you actually watched that? Or did you just do an interview, but you're one of those people who you don't want to watch it?
You know what? 99% of the time, I don't really watch a whole lot of the stuff, but that one I did. But I actually was excited about that one because it felt to me like it's one of those things where you're going to be able to pass on to your kids. And so, I don't know. I felt honored that anybody would do that. And a lot of times you're like, no, got too much going on, blah, blah, blah. But I think that one felt weirdly, it felt like an honor. It just felt like I was like, wow, I can't believe anyone would want to do that on me. But it felt special and unique. And I just thought about my kids and the grandkids. And when I'm dead and gone, hopefully more than 10 years, but they'll all be able to go back and look at that and kind of see it. And so I gave them, time, and I tried to be as honest as I could. And I loved it. I thought they did a great job, and I watched it all the way through, and they really did great.
I'm glad you watched it because, obviously when we created 30 for 30, we weren't expecting that historical document aspect of it. And I remember like the Fab Five one we did about Jalen, that like changed Jalen's life. He was this whole new generation of people who had no idea what that team was. And they watched that Fab Five and it like belatedly became a cool team again. And it got mentioned to him for the next 10 years. So
that was my era right there. That was
yeah. But that's the thing. If you do those correctly, it's really cool. And it's really cool to watch it, with your kids, your grandkids someday, all that stuff. So anyway, I'm glad you watched it. It was good seeing you. I'm glad you're well. Hopefully you're right about Brady. I would hate to see him go down the tubes.
Don't worry.
Yeah, on a different team like this.
I'm going to go right now. He's going to figure it out.
I'll believe you. Great seeing you, and congrats on all the CBS stuff. It's been really, really fun watching you do the games, and keep it up.
Thanks, Bill. You're the best. Appreciate it.
Thank you.